Okay, welcome everyone to take 2 ng In Between ngayong gabi. Okay, welcome everyone sa live stream po ng In Between on Facebook Live and on our YouTube channel. Ngayon po ay February 10, 2020. Season 1 pa rin ng In Between. Naka-episode 7 na yata kami o episode 6. Hindi ko pa rin na-check. Anyway, good evening sa inyo lahat. Advance Happy Chinese New Year. We call this show In Between because it's in between our weekly Saturday talk show TechSabado. At syempre, in between ito dahil mamaya po ang aming special guest ay nasa gitna namin ni Attorney
Melvin Kalimag po ng Newsbytes.PH.
Okay.
Jing,
medyo na-delay tayo ng konti pero yun na nga. Ngayon po ay in middle of the week, Wednesday. Saan po meron po rin kaming show every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. Aside po to sa aming TechSabado every Saturday. Ito rin po sa Facebook Live ng TechSabado at syempre sa aming YouTube channel. Okay, pasok na natin agad yung ating na-delay kasi tayo ng konti. Pasok na natin ating special guest for tonight.
Oo. Jing, itong last man standing no sa among our yung country managers na naabutan natin.
Yung mga bigatin IT execs ng Pilipinas.
Nung sisimula pa lang tayo, country manager na siya. Actually, bata pa lang tayo. Idol lang natin to eh. Walang iba. Huwag natin paano patagalin. No? Ang ating kaibigan na ang country manager ng Dell Philippines, Mr. Ronnie Latinazo. Good evening, Ronnie.
Good evening, Melvin. Good evening, Jing. Good evening.
As usual,
thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Poging-pogi pa rin ang Ronnie Latinazo.
Oo, mati ni Idol. Oo. Mati nun, pag nag-video tayo, Jing, no? Talagang maraming na-in-love na girls kay Ronnie pag kumakanta.
Lehiala killer to eh.
Oo, parang kilabot ng mga kolehiala.
Kilabot, ng mga kolehiala. Mga tech journalist na babae.
Malarik si Greto, no?
Oo. Okay, baka sabihin na tayo. Man crush yan eh, yan si Ronnie dahil tagal na natin sa tagal na natin sa industry. hindi posibleng hindi tayo magkano. 20 years.
Pero parang bata tignan ni Ronnie, no? Pero tatanungin ba natin kung anong edad niya?
Hindi na. Alam natin, last man standing. Bakit mo nasabi yun, Attorney, na last man standing?
Hindi kasi mga kasabayan niya ng mga country managers, medyo wala na rin sa industry natin, di ba? Tulad nila, let's say, Ricky Banag, ng Intel, si Nilo Cruz ng HP, si Raymond Del Val, ng HP of course din, si Jamamon.
Si Jamamon ng Sun. Mga Blue Boys yan eh. Yan sila Ronnie, tsaka sila Dilo, di ba? Big Blue. Big Blue Boys.
Mamaya pag-uusapan natin kung ano yung Big Blue na yan. Pero, magsimula tayo dun sa pinakauna, okay? Yes. Nung nag-aaral pa siya. Ronnie, can you just give us a brief background of yourself nung saan ka ba nag-aaral, saan ba probinsya nyo, kung meron man, those stuff.
Okay. Siguro, I started grade school high school sa Ateneo. So, Ateneo.
Atenista ka pala.
And then,
Arneo.
And then college, I actually entered into UP. My initial plan was to become a pre-med student in UP. So, I thought, the best place to take up medicine and magkuha ng pre-med was UP. So, luckily, I entered UP. Pero after one sem, sabi ko, parang nag-iba
anong course mo sa UP?
Gusto ko.
Anong kinuha mo ng course?
Psychology.
Okay.
Sa pre-med. So, pero after one sem, parang sabi ko, parang iisip ko, parang nag-iiba ata yung gusto ko. I want something that's more analytical, more logic, using my logical skills. Kasi I found medyo mas maraming memory work. Parang ang hirap, no? Para mag-prepare for one exam, parang isang linggo.
Ganun ba?
Parang, ewan ko, baka ako lang, hirap na hirap ako dun sa pre-med, no? So I decided I'm gonna shift. So I shifted to economics.
Oh.
So after 1-2 sems, I prepared to shift to economics. Okay naman, I graduated from economics in Werke pa, naka-honors pa when I graduated.
Wow.
And then, but that landed me in a economics track. Siyempre, ibang-iba na from medicine. And so after graduating...
Mga anong year yun?
I graduated in 1985.
85.
So,
okay. Pre-EDSA, evolution.
Medyo konti ka yung trabaho nun kasi nagkakagulo yung
mga tao.
Ang hirap mag-apply.
At hindi ka naging komunista. Okay.
Hindi siya na red tag.
Hindi siya na red tag. Continue.
So luckily I ended up joining SGB, Sisip Gores Velayo, in the management services side. I was a technical staff doing research. So I was made responsible for doing executive summary briefings. We had a monthly publication. Ako yung nag-prepare ng data. Back then, yung data collection was manual. I'd go to the agencies. Kupitin ko yung dyaryo. Babasahin ko lahat ng dyaryo. I'll put it in a digital format. Ayusin ko. Photocopy ko yun. Lilinisin ko yung sides. Tapos ipo-photocopy ko ulit hanggang luminis yung report. Very...
talagang manual, no?
Crude yung technology ng araw. So that was my role in SGB. I stayed there for 2 years. Tinapos ko yung contract as a technical staff. So after a while, I was...
Technical staff of whom?
May level sa SGB. Technical staff 1, 2, 3, before you become a consultant, then manager, then... So entry level ko, technical staff. Researcher ka, taga-photocopy ka, taga lahat, no? Taga-collecta ka ng data, whatever is required to do the job. Back then, yun nga, research ako. I was with the economics group. Yung iba, merong napunta sa IT. Ako, economics ako nun. So it was purely research. And then, after 2 years, yung contract with SGB, of course, I could continue, but I thought the only way to move upward in a company like a consulting company like SGB was to take up further studies. So, inaambisyon kong ma-promote to manager doon, but I was looking around, everyone was taking their masters. No? So, with that in mind, I applied in UP to take up my MBA. And so, I joined UP master's program on a full-time basis. So,
sa Diliman to, sa Diliman.
Diliman. Kasi malapit sa bahay namin yun, taga-QC ako. So, I was pursuing that after trimester yung MBA Masters ng UP nun. So, after 3 sems, I had friends in the batch ahead. Kasi mga 2 years yung Masters, di ba? I had friends in the one batch ahead. So when they graduated, they started applying. Nag-apply na sila. So ako naman, biglang may nakita akong ad na ina-applyan nila, this company called IBM. So they opened the ad, nakalagay, marketing training. Ayan. So ako naman, sabi ko, sige nga, makikisabay nga ako. Baka machamba ako lang kahit na hindi pa ako tapos sa masters. No?
Wow.
And to my surprise, ako yung natanggap. Hindi natanggap yung mga
kasama mo.
Graduates. Kasi may masters na sila. Ako wala. So I ended up cutting my master's short kasi back then, sabi ko, siguro I'll continue my master's at night. Magpa-part-time na lang ako. I'll take the opportunity to work for IBM. IBM was a very
big company,
respected company back then, di ba? So I went through the interview process. I got hired. Akala ko pa noon, Kasi in my mind, economics ang shift ko dito from research, marketing, brand management, yung ganung type. Product management, brand. So when I saw the ad, marketing trainee, I thought it was really a marketing role. No? So not knowing na in IBM, that's actually a route. The roadmap for that is either a pre-sales role or a sales role. Okay? So, kaya lang, nung nalaman ko inside, nandun na ako sa loob, nagpe-training na ako, and back then, IBM really invested in training. No? For the first 9 months, gaaral ka lang.
At saka, Ronnie,
education center.
Uso nun yung pinapadala pa yata kayo sa ibang bansa, sa Hong Kong, Singapore to study, no?
Ako yung, saan ba ako nagpunta? We went to Hong Kong first for the first 2 trainings. And then the next 2 courses sa Singapore kami. I was one of the first batches na nag-shift from Hong Kong to Singapore. So nakita ko yung Hong Kong and Singapore education centers namin. So I was fortunate to go through that. So yun, first 9 months, aral lang, educate, balik ka, kuha kang exam, tipad ka doon, study for 2 weeks, sarap, no? Tapos, you're paid, may sweldo ka, meron kang per diem, nag-iipon ka, pang shopping, di ba?
Pero did you know right away na, uy, mukhang okay dito mukhang okay itong IT magtatagal ako dito. Ganun ba yun? Nakita mo ba yun?
Maybe not that far, no? Maybe not that far. It was really, I was so young. I was 24, 25. Hindi ka pa sure what you really want in your career, di ba? So it was really, I'm taking it 1 year at a time, maybe, I'd say. There was no long-term plan. But of course, I was really just looking at the people in IBM. Lahat sila, they were doing well. Very inspiring yung leaders. So, parang, sige, ito, parang okay to. I just observe what they're doing. I want to aspire for the next level, next position.
Who was the country manager of IBM then?
When I joined, it was Bobby Romulo.
Oh, Bobby. The great Bobby Romulo. So, naabutan ko pa si Bobby Romulo. And so, after the training, the 9-month training, I think I did quite well in the training. Again, nagtatap ako may ranking yan So they thought I was probably technical. So ginagay nila ako sa pre-sales, ginawa akong systems engineer, no? Oh my goodness.
My first role was to be a systems engineer. Ginawa akong DB2 specialist.
Yung OS.
Yung database. So, ginawa akong DB2 specialist and CSP specialist. And then I was assigned to the banking sector. I was assigned to one of the first DB2 installations in the country. Back then, it was UCTB. So I was like the pre-sales account officer, pre-sales or systems engineer ang title. Systems engineer for the UCTB account. So that's where I got the introduction to the real life of pre-sales and sales. But after a year, kasi maganda naman yung relationship with the account. I think the customer was very happy. They saw the potential to shift me to a sales role. So si Nilo Cruz said, and my boss then was Jajo Quintos.
Si Jajo.
I was reporting to Jajo. Jajo was the SE manager. Then I was tapos ang kapartner niya sa banking, si Nilo Cruz.
Okay. Magkasabay pala sila.
Parang sila yung partners doon Sales manager and then SE manager. And then, I guess the two agreed, ilipat nga natin si Ronnie sa sales. So, after a year, they made me the account executive or account manager for the same account, UCPP. And so, I shifted to the sales role. Started in the banking industry. I probably stayed there for 5 years. I was handling, after UCPB, they added other accounts. And then Allied Bank. So I was handling banks. And then after that, there was typical of any multinational or like IBM, reorgs are done often. Yeah? It's good. It makes you well-rounded. It gives you new experiences. It gives you new challenges. And at that time, there was a major reorg. And Nilo became the head of public sector.
Okay.
So when he was shifted to public sector, dinala ako ni Nilo. Ronnie, tama ka dito. I will make you head one of the industries. I was asked initially to head the telco and I think petroleum industry. So petroleum, telco was under me. Back then, banking was the bread and butter. Banking was, pag banking nga, medyo malalaki yung quota dyan, yung accounts, malalaki yung mga sales, di ba? And then if you were in the public sector, it's very, very cyclical lang sales, di ba? You have big sales and small. And then in the telco was very small then because the telco was a regulated industry. It was a monopoly, in fact, right?
PLDT lang nun eh.
PLDT lang nun. But luckily, after that, the time they shifted me to handle telco, that's when the deregulation happened. I think that was about 1993 when the telco industry, the Philippines, was deregulated.
Yep.
The government issued, I think, 7 or 8 new licenses, right? So that gave birth to new brands, new telcos, right? Bayantel, yung mga
Islacom.
Islacom. Basta dami yan, di ba? Hinati. So, I was new then. The industry was emerging because of the deregulation. And back then, we were looking for solutions to bring into the country from IBM because all the telcos were starting up. So they were setting up their infrastructure. The basic IT infra, customer care and billing, yung plan management, yung customer care, billing, those are the basic applications in a telco. So luckily, we found IBM had this solution, which is an AS400 based solution, which was sold to Telecoms New Zealand. So we looked at that. We said, hey, New Zealand is about the size of Philippines, diba? Although baliktad, yung number of sheep nila, yun yung population natin. Ang dami natin. Only had 3-4 million population standpoint. But the land area was the same. And while New Zealand had the perception that it was a bit, agricultural, when you look at what Telecom New Zealand did back then, it was pretty impressive, no? So we started bringing customers. The first customer we brought there was Digitel. Digitel was the first customer who actually signed up for that solution. So we went to New Zealand, showed them what New Zealand did, New Zealand Telecom did. Tinanggal nila yung branches. They used their technology, the phone, to serve their customers. Everything's by phone. Tinanggal nila yung branch offices. And so it was fully integrated. Back then, mahirap pumanap ng integrated offering that, integrates the customer care, the billing, and the plant management. Those are the 3 main
end-to-end
areas. So alam nang when an agent answers your phone, they know what you have. They know the total relationship with the customer. So it was back then, pretty advanced customer care and billing system. And swerte na naman, after Digitel, we sold it to other companies like Smart Telecom, PLDT, Bayantel bought it, Eastern Telecom bought it. So lumaki talaga yung business namin for the telco industry from the Philippines. And,
because of yung AS400 na system.
ICMS, it's called ICMS, no? So
ICMS, okay.
ICMS is the name of the application. Integrated Customer Management System. Ayun, natin pangalan.
Yeah.
So again, I was leading the telco industry for the Philippines because of the growth, tremendous growth. After you sell one system, we sold it to another one. We had several customers. I got promoted to become the division manager.
Wow.
Sales, ginawa akong division manager. And my boss then was Mon Hokson.
Oh, si
yun.
Monjo. Oh.
Si Monjo.
I think Mon was your guest recently.
Yes, a few weeks ago.
Ayan.
Oo.
He was the
So
first guest in our podcast, actually.
Okay. So yun, Mon gave me the opportunity to head the public sector division. Public sector included government, it included telco, travel, utilities. So I was responsible for all that. No? And then after that, yun nga, ang laki na kasi nung telco industry sa Philippines. So the region saw that and said, hey, why don't you replicate that success in ASEAN? So when I was, I think at the age of 34, ginawa akong 34, I think they made me the ASEAN GM for the telco industry.
Wow.
For ASEAN. Okay, so I was covering the ASEAN countries, leading the telco teams in each of the countries. It was a regional role. I did that role for 2 years. Flying
based
around.
here?
Huh?
But based in the Philippines.
I was based in the Philippines because yung Philippines was the biggest telco business.
What
It
talaga?
accounted for probably more than 50% of the total telco business in ASEAN. For the company. So they wanted me to replicate that. The challenge given to me was, why don't you replicate that in the other countries, right? Because shortly after the Philippine telco industry was deregulated, the other countries also started deregulating their telco industry. Diba?
May nangyari. Okay.
So you mean to say, nauna pa tayong mag-deregulate?
Regulate.
Naiiwan pa tayo ngayon?
We were the first. We were the first.
Okay.
One of the first, if not the first.
Talaga? That's a very interesting information that you mentioned. Wow.
Kaya pretty advanced yung telco natin. So we were parang the success story for telco.
ASEAN.
In fact, at some point we were the reference. Our customers were the reference for selling telco solutions across the region.
Siguro dahil yung value added services for the telco. Kasi ang naging problema natin, we focus on that yung which a single server can accommodate, or a single cell site can accommodate. Ang problema, nakalimutan ng mga telco to put up towers when 3G and 4G came. Is that correct?
Well, 4G came years after. When it was first deregulated.
Okay pa
lang to eh. Hindi, tsaka mas pa yung technology nun. Text lang yun.
Analog
text, yes.
2G, pasok pa lang nga yung 2G noong time na yun, di ba?
In fact, if you look at it, back then, the thinking was it was landline. Landline yung labanan nun kasi ang hirap kumuha ng landline, di ba?
Wala pa 1 million yata landline nun eh.
We didn't expect the mobile technology to grow this much back then. Back then, the telcos were thinking, it's a good mix of bulk of it would be landline, postpaid pa nga eh. Landline, postpaid, di ba? And then, then the introduction of wireless, di ba? Mobile. In the early days, mobile was not yet expected to grow that fast.
Kasi mahal eh. Mahal ang telepono nun eh.
And biglang, tingnan mo ngayon, if you looking back, wow, what happened? Prepaid became the biggest form of billing. And then mobile grew much faster than landline, di ba? So those were things that I think back then we didn't expect. And in fact, if we go back to the solution I was talking about, yung ICMS, it was really geared for landline and
Talaga?
it was a billing system. It was geared for that type of an operation. So that will tell you back then it wasn't expected that the telco industry will turn out this way, the way it is today, right? The technology has evolved has moved so fast that the market has changed completely. Of course, what's good back then was the deregulation encouraged innovation and competition, right? And because of that, service improved, coverage improved, more investments came in from the telcos. Eventually, of course, as we all know, consolidation happened. A lot of them, eventually got consolidated to where we are today. So we're back to two major players, third coming in. So that's how it evolved. It went from a complete deregulation, maybe with 8-9 players. Now we're back to 2 and 3. So interesting. Yeah. It was a very interesting ride for me back then. So I was heading telco. I was in the region traveling. Biglang a company called EMC called me. I didn't know who EMC was. In one of my trips, sabi, we need to talk to you. So I spoke to them. And then after so many discussions, initially I said no because I've always been in the industry side, banking, telco. Biglang EMC was a product company. It was a storage company. So I felt masyadong limiting ata to. But they were persistent. After I said no, they came back. After another month, they came back. So the third time, sabi ko, offer. So I started studying what was EMC, no? Then I found out EMC was the stock of the decade for the New York Stock Exchange. So, bakit to stock of the decade? The stock grew 80,000% in the decade. So if you had $1 in $1,000 by the end of the decade, $80,000. So wow. So there must be something good with this company, So I studied more. Then eventually they convinced me na, hey, it's a good company. It's a very innovative company. And they wanted me to start EMC in the Philippines.
Wow.
So I said, it's a good challenge. Opportunity for me to essentially start up a new company. I haven't experienced that. I've always worked for a company that's established, although they're all market leaders. EMC was a market leader in its own right. It was the leader in the storage space, although they're not in the Philippines. So sabi ko, there's risk because I'm going to introduce it to the market, but I'm backed by a reputable company. So I decided to join them.
What year was
January 2000. I took the risk.
Remember?
Yes. So I took the risk. I said goodbye to IBM, and then I joined EMC January 3, I think. On my first day, they flew me to the US for a kickoff. I think I flew to New Orleans, and then I got introduced to the EMC culture. So very different. I think in IBM, one thing I would say is, that's where I honed my management skills, the values and culture. I joined EMC. It was a very results-driven company because they were very successful. As I said, stock of the decade. Everyone was the technology was considered game-changing. They started as a storage company. Essentially, yung value proposition nila was, if you're a mainframe customer, use EMC, papalitin namin yung batch window mo. Kasi ang bilis ng makina namin. So because back then the challenge with most mainframe application was the batch window, di ba? Kasi may batch window lagi eh. You'll run your operations online during the day, and then at night you will run the batch window. Sa kuminsan, because of the transactions and the volume, nag-extend yung batch window beyond the night. So hindi ka ngayon maka-start ng operations during at 9 o'clock, diba? If you're a bank. So EMC approached a lot of the mainframe customers and said, use my storage, we will shorten your batch window. So that was the first. And it worked. And then after a plain storage, so the value proposition was performance. And then after that, nagkaroon ng from the mainframe, there were Unix was introduced, diba? And then x86. They said, hey, you have a single storage that you can connect to all three platforms. So it was an enterprise storage. And back then, they were the first to do that. So what does that give a customer? It gives you the capability to increase the utilization of your storage infrastructure kasi shared na siya ngayon eh. Dati bibili ka ng storage for mainframe, storage for Unix, storage for x86. So siguro iba-iba yung utilization. Now if you pool it, then it gives you the capability to up the utilization, and then there's a single way of managing your data. Single way of backing up for all your mainframe, Unix, and x86. There's a single way of doing disaster recovery. There was a single way of protecting your storage. So they changed the world from a server-centric architecture, ginawa nilang storage-centric architecture. So that was the value proposition. So,
Pero
mamaya,
what were the initially? What were the challenges putting up EMC in the Philippines? Logistical-wise, mga ganon.
Alala ko pa yung office niya sa Regus eh. Regus naging office niya
there. Actually, I think it's changing the mindset of the team. Because it was, EMC's way of selling was very different. I always described it as parang ang evangelist eh. Kasi the traditional way of how customers set up the infrastructure, or as I was saying, it was very server-centric. Ito yung server, kakabitan mo ng printer, kakabitan mo ng storage, backup, ganyan. And then EMC was, ang center of the infrastructure was storage. So, in a way, you have to educate, spend a lot of effort educating first ourselves, because that's not the way we were thinking of infrastructure. And then how do we educate the customer? So I always said our biggest challenge was not competition because our technology was game-changing. The biggest challenge was changing the mindset of the market.
Especially na puro ang daming legacy systems nung time na yun, ang dami ng legacy systems.
But if you do a proof of concept, you let them try it, magugulat sila, wow, pwede pala yan. It was a very, as I said, very different technology, very innovative. And once customers experience it, they loved it. They loved it. And then the internet era came, right? So it was very important that customers were running 24/7. So, which means importanteng maiksi yung batch window. There should be a technology that, in fact, that will allow you to run 24/7. EMC had that. EMC had the software that allows companies to operate 24/7. They had a software na gagawa ka ng copy, instant copy, para ma-run mo yung batch job in the background while you continue with your online operation. So when that internet age came in, there were a few vendors in the market who really made their name and made it big. Oracle on the database side, Cisco in the network side, Sun in the server, kasi Unix, di ba? Very hip ang Unix, no? Open systems. and EMC on the storage. So we were called the four horsemen of the internet. Okay,
Yung
so
pala.
parang to work in those four companies back then, medyo hip. Kasi
Yes, oo.
kayo yung di ba? Kayo yung innovative companies. They
Parang
were
pag nawala
in
kayo, walang internet nung time na yun.
naman, pero kumbaga, we were the proven technologies back then. So,
behind that, back end.
yeah, and so that shortly after 2 years, after starting EMC here for 2 years, naging number one na yung EMC sa Philippines. And you were covering me back then. I'm sure you remember.
Laging consistent achiever ang Philippines sa ASEAN or Asian region, Ronnie, di ba?
Relative to the ASEAN, but Philippines market, if I recall, starting mga 2002, 2003, number one na kami. So, dire-diretso na yan. So,
okay.
Yung ano na tinatawag na Rolls Royce ng storage.
The market grew already. But then again, if we recall, yung early 2000s then came there was a crisis, di ba? Bumagsak, nagkaroon ng challenge. So, I think, luckily, the company back then, EMC, saw that and started their journey to evolve. No, so they bought. They were focused on the high-end mainframe. They bought a company called Data General in 1999, which allowed them to introduce a mid-tier storage offering. Then they bought a company called Legato for backup.
Yeah, I remember. Remember that.
They bought VMware. They bought VMware in 2004. So medyo nag-broaden yung portfolio ng EMC, right? So and they repositioned themselves from a pure storage or an enterprise storage company. They started saying, now we're a company that can manage your whole information lifecycle, right? So from the time data is produced to the time it's used, they can save it, they can manage it, to the time that you want to dispose of the data, we can all manage that for you because of the acquisitions that they've made. And I think there were good acquisitions. They stitched well together. And then eventually EMC continued their acquisition. They bought, what else? Green Plum on the big data.
I remember.
They bought Pivotal. Again, so that went through the years. I think that kept me excited working for the company for 18, 17 years.
Marami rin tayong naging kaibigan, Jing. Aside from Ronnie, sila Teddy, sila Rene, Tablante, sila... Who else ba yung mga kasama mo, Ronnie? Doon sa...
Continue pa nun
Yeah. Madami. Sino?
So, konti pa rin yun nun.
konti pa lang sila nun.
Pero I remember talaga, what I remember about EMC, yung mga big words na ginagamit natin ngayon sa tech.
Big data.
Big data talagang sa kanila.
Big data.
So yung information lifecycle management.
Medyo forward-looking, di ba?
Yes. That's
and
true.
Then, I think, so fast forward 2016, 2015, 2015, Dell announced it's looking at buying EMC.
Yeah, EMC.
The deal was finally formalized in 2016. And then in 2017, operationally, the two companies came together. The two teams came together.
The biggest, no? It's the biggest in tech. Yung acquisition na yun, it's the biggest.
It's biggest acquisition in tech back then, over $60 billion. And I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to head the combined team in the Philippines. So they gave me that role, and so my challenge back then was how do I gel the two teams who from different cultures, different background, and different
Culture.
solution areas and also maraming challenges every time you merge two companies. And so that was the challenge then. 2017, I was formally announced. And then now, ayan, now
4
I'm
years
still
after.
here.
Oh.
Still there.
So, and the company has evolved. Back then, it's good for me because back then EMC was largely information infrastructure, diba? Storage, backup. And then Dell broadened with the combination of Dell. Now we have the full suite of infrastructure. End to end, we have servers, we have client product, we have storage, we have backup, we have security, we have name it, basta end to end, anywhere from the edge to the core to the cloud. We have the offering for that. So that's where we're positioned right now. I think Michael Dell had the vision then to say, hey, there is no company that provides that end-to-end infrastructure solution. Companies are also trying to choose strategic partners. So they want to talk to less people instead of talking to 100 vendors, maybe reduce it to 10, 20. And so he made a good call to say, hey, I want Dell Technologies to be that company. You see other companies in the industry who decided otherwise. They started chopping off the company, selling it into pieces, and so totally different strategy. But I think it's working well for Dell Technologies today, given where we are.
Jing, alam mo, sobrang bilib ako sa staying power ni Ronnie.
Oo nga eh.
Biro mo, 17, 18 years yata as country manager ng
21 na.
Hindi, ng EMC. EMC mo na. Parang, ba't hindi to? Hindi nabalitan.
Hindi matinag, no?
Parang first and last, siya lang eh. No? Parang siya yung Mr. EMC. Parang gano'n. Tapos ngayon, siya pa lang din. Nawala na yung mga kasabayan.
Dell EMC. Di ba Dell EMC pa rin ang tawag, di ba, Ronnie? Or
hindi na yata.
Dell Technologies.
We've now called it Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies.
Because if you look at Dell, it's beyond Dell EMC. Dell EMC was just one brand. It's actually a family of companies, businesses. As I said, we have VMware. You're probably aware. We have VMware. We have a company for VirtuStream. We have security companies like SecureWorks. We use the Dell brand for our client products, laptops, desktops.
So Dell Technologies
we have
is umbrella.
Several brands.
The umbrella.
So Dell Technologies yung umbrella, which we use, which houses the family of businesses who are what we call strategically aligned. They operate independently, but they're strategically aligned. There's synergies to be had by doing that based on that strategy. And as I said, we're delivering joint solutions into the market, be it in the area of workforce management, with the recent events since last year.
How are you
have
coping?
Shifted dramatically to remote work.
Yes.
Workforce,
How are tech companies coping with the pandemic, especially Dell?
Sorry,
Technologies?
what?
How are you coping with the current pandemic, especially now?
I think one thing that came out of the pandemic was the realization that companies need to accelerate their transformation because technology became very important for a company to survive. And those who invested early in their digital transformation journey, in a way, turned out to be at advantage when the pandemic, came about. Because they were ready to serve their customers using technology, online transactions. They were able to support. People didn't want to go. For example, if you're a bank, you have to shift away from the branches. Telco, same thing. There's a lot of innovation that came out that forced companies to innovate because of the lockdown, right? And then, of course, one of the big things that happened was workers suddenly were shifted to become remote workers, working from home. Even call centers and all shifted, and that drove acceleration in the workforce transformation space. When we talk about transformation, there are four areas we look at: workforce, yung remote workforce. There's the IT transformation, the data center. How do you make it faster, scalable, and more efficient? And then there's security, and then there's the application side. All these pillars work together, are important pillars for a company to look at when they're going through a digital journey. We think all companies have no choice. All companies will have to convert or take that journey to becoming a digital organization. It's a digital company. So our vision is really and strategy is really to lead our customers in that transformation, help them accelerate that journey so that they can get the business outcomes that they want um, in the market that allows them to compete. And in fact, if you look at the data, with the pandemic, locally 84% of the companies said they had to increase their budget, their IT budget, in 2020 because of the need to accelerate that digital journey.
Okay.
In a global survey, 84% of companies said they had to fast track their digital transformation initiatives to bring it forward in order to cope with what's happening in the market, right? Many companies feared that they might not survive the pandemic because they were not ready. They were caught flat-footed. And so the lesson learned is really, if you're a company, you invested early, you're innovative, you're agile, you had the right infrastructure, investment in technology and digitalization, then I think you were well positioned in your market. And those who were late are trying to catch up now or will not survive. So I think that's very clear. So I think from our standpoint, that was one of the things that came out of that experience. Companies accelerated it. Now, of course, moving forward, ang dami pa. There's new technologies that are coming in. I think companies have realized that IT becomes more important now. It has gone back to be a boardroom discussion. Dati, IT in some companies was, IT lang yan, automation lang yan. But now, companies are realizing it's necessary for survival. It's necessary for competitive advantage. It's necessary to deliver better customer experience to your market. So the game has changed. For you to compete locally and globally, technology is inevitable. That investment is inevitable. And what's exciting out there is, edge technology is coming, 5G, enabled by 5G. So exciting solutions are coming in. The use cases for example, edge computing and 5G is very interesting. You're seeing it both locally and in other countries.
Johnny, on a personal level, if you look back in your career, what were the highlights and important milestones in your career that made you stick?
Here, where did I was trained as a young boy na okay lang maghirap. You work for something that you want. You have to earn it. So my parents trained me to think that way. So you set a goal for yourself. You do everything you can. You work hard to get that goal. So I did that in my personal life. In my education, I say gusto ko naman, I'll graduate with honors. I'll do it. Kasi nagawa ko ganyan. And then I want I want to be one of the best in what I do. So I work hard. When I entered sales, ganun din. I want to reach my targets. I have a commitment. So I met my targets consistently. I think in my 11 years or 10 years in IBM, I only missed my target once.
Wow.
So I think that highlights, again, I think my time in IBM, that was when I was honing my management skills. At each point in my career, you develop a different aspect of your person. EMC, because of its very results-driven culture, I think taught me how to drive results. Operational excellence was very important. Execution was important. And it gave me the experience to build a winning team, a high-performing team from scratch, because I started the company from zero. No? So I built the culture. The leadership builds the culture. I built the values. And luckily for me, a lot of them still, a lot of the members or team members in EMC still work for Dell today. And so, I think I'm very proud of the team I built. They keep me from, worrying, because I can rely on them. I think one secret is, if you are able to build a very good team, then your work becomes much, much easier, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's true. That's true.
and then now with Dell, the highlight, Jan, was how do you do an integration as seamless as possible, building a new culture, building a new team, and again making that a high performing team. So that's another highlight of my career that I can be proud of. We've integrated the company pretty well, I think, if you ask me. There's now a sense of belonging, sense of teamwork. It's a high-performing team. Again, something that I'm very proud of. A highly respected team, not only locally, but I think within the Dell world, in the region, the Philippine team is known. So I'm proud of that.
Wow. So, wala na tayong oras, Jing. 1 hour tayong nakipagkwentuhan ka, Ronnie, kasi mesmerize tayo kay Ronnie.
Ganda ng kwento niya, especially
Oo.
when he started the company, that really big company na totally unknown to a lot of people, yung EMC. Diba?
Siya, Jing, first and last country manager. Ang team ni Ronnie. Ayun, so he has made a mark in the IT industry, and he has paid his dues. Ronnie's also dati what do you call this? Active member of ITAP, di ba?
ITAP,
yes.
Down in the industry. Yun. So we're very, very honored to have you, Ronnie, here. We acknowledge your contributions in the industry, and we wish you all more achievements in the future.
Thank you.
Ano ba? Ronnie, pwede ka naman mag-retire? May iniisip mo ba mag-retire na? Hindi pa.
Wag muna.
Bata pa si Ronnie, bata pa.
Nag-enjoy pa ako.
That's good. Okay yun. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie Latinazo, country manager of Dell Philippines. Dell Technologies Philippines. Okay, matagal natin kaibigan si Ronnie. May mga comments lang dito, mga
sige.
basahin lang natin. Sila Ginny, si Jane Tuazo ng Aircon Store Pasig, si RG Espinosa, si Alex Fuentes, si Mel Dominguez, si Alvin Pingo, si Ron Francisco, si Paulo Lising, si Julie Tanaka, si Ronan Prudencio, si May Parbo, si Rena Ledesma. Sabi niya, itong episode na ramdam mo ang iyong edad. Great message, especially to the young listeners, professional, about hard work, working well, teamwork, and resilience.
Actually, yun naman purpose talaga ng show na to, itong in-between, para makita nyo po yung mga naging successful sa sa evolution ng Philippine
IT
industry natin. Kasi iniisip nyo lang po yung mga nasa Silicon Valley lang, ang mga yung mga kumikita o kaya nagkakaroon ng magandang career. Hindi po. Dito po sa Pilipinas, ang dami pong mga kaibigan namin mga kasama namin sa industriya na maganda po ang posisyon nila sa tech industry at naging part po sila ng digital transformation which is still continuing to evolve dito sa Pilipinas. Yan po ang purpose namin para ma-inspire po kayo.
Correct. Okay. So, paalam na tayo, Jing. Siguro,
Yes.
We'll give Ronnie the
Ronnie.
last parting words.
Okay, well, again, thank you for having me. Siguro, last message would be, we all recognize that technology is transforming the world. It's in a way, technology is helping shape human progress, and Dell as a company, I'm proud to be part of it. And our purpose is really to create technology that would drive human progress. So not only are we trying to sell for the sake of selling, but we are happy to see that we're helping change the world to become a better world. To accelerate the transformation, we're helping companies deliver outcome. And for companies, I think it's already a given. We need to invest in seriously in our digital transformation journey, because technology will eventually determine and becomes part of our daily life. So it's inevitable, and we're here to help you.
Yep.
Thank you.
With that, thank you very much, Mr. Ronnie Latinazo, Country Manager of Dell Technologies Philippines. Maraming salamat,
Thank you,
Ronnie.
Good
Okay,
evening.
sa lahat ng ating mga
Taga-subaybay.
Facebook viewers na sumabaybay, maraming salamat mga nag-comment. Si Michael Lance, si Rick Valera, yung ganitong manager ang hinahanap ng karamihan, sabi niya, pahabol niya. Okay, maraming pong salamat. Kita-kita po ulit tayo next week. Si Earl Valencia po ang natin, ang magiging guest natin for In Between. Isa po siyang,
Yes.
yung founder po siya ng Idea Space, tsaka Silicon Valley executive to. Well-known Pinoy. Silicon Valley
Pinoy
executive.
yes.
Oo. Okay, Jing?
Yes, okay. Jing Garcia po ng TechSabado.com. Huwag niyo pong kalimutan sa Sabado. TechSabado, darating na Sabado po yan. 8 p.m. din po. Like at follow nyo ang aming mga social media pages. Facebook.com/TechSabado. Facebook.com/Newsbytes.PH. Nasa Twitter din kami at TechSabado at saka at Newsbytes.PH. So mga nanonood ng TechSabado sa YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up kung nagustuhan niyo po ang aming programa ngayon araw na to. At bigyan din kami ng mag-subscribe din po kayo. Meron pong button sa baba. Click nyo lang po yan at yung notification bell kung gusto nyo pong ma-alert ng mga bagong video mula sa TechSabado at saka sa In Between. Of course, ang aming website, TechSabado.com at news.com at saka Newsbytes.PH. Remind ko lang mga viewers, mga gusto po mag-show ng support sa amin dito sa TechSabado at saka sa In Between. May link po kami sa Facebook namin at saka sa YouTube video namin kung paano nyo po ito gagawin. Abangan yung podcast version nitong show na to by Friday. Nasa Spotify na po siya. Maraming salamat, PLDT Smart Group Corporate Communications Team, for their continuing support. Thank you, MSI, AMD, Noctua, for the support of our tech news website, TechSabado.com. XSplit for the support on our weekly streaming. Don't forget, TechSabado this Saturday. Next week ulit para sa In Between. Wear a mask, stay home, stay safe. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Thank you.